The toughest leadership lesson I have ever learned. And I'm going to share with you as part of that lesson as to why your boss can never be your entire career strategy. So really hate to be the one to tell you this because I have had fantastic bosses over my career, but I've also had some really awful ones. And if your boss is central to your strategy to get promoted, to get a higher salary, to get developed into your next leadership role, I want to share with you why if that is your entire strategy, and this is a lesson that took me a lot of years, a lot of pain to learn. And I want to share that with you today because it is one of the toughest mistakes that I made in my career. And it is one of the biggest and most valuable lessons that I have to share with you. So I also know from conversations I've had with multiple women over the last months and over the 5 years of my coaching that there are a lot of you living in this exact situation right now. Now, let's just roll back the time or rewind back. So this was when I had what I thought was my dream leadership role. It honestly felt like I was on cloud nine. I was building a brand new department from scratch. I had a motivated team. I was building strong relationships with the rest of the executive team. And I had a great relationship with my boss, like super. I felt like we were like the first time ever, because I've always been a little bit, for me, like, okay, well, I want to keep a little bit of distance, professionalism between my work and my private, but we became friends, or at least that is what I thought. It felt like a really good collaborative and supportive relationship that I had with my boss, the ideas that I shared, the results that I was getting, everything was like flying colors. My evaluations, all perfect. And because of this, I also didn't want to pass them by. So things like, even though I had relationships with the rest of the executive team and I had relationships across the organization, I also wanted to like limit that more to like if it's on a professional topic that we needed to talk about, but nothing really extensive beyond that because I didn't want to pass by my boss. And I didn't want to look like or be disloyal to them. Well, then something happened. I had a personal milestone that I wanted to share. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but it literally flipped a switch and the relationship with my boss like turned on its head. It was flipped 180 degrees overnight. And it just took me completely by surprise. And I really had a hard time going like, what the hell just happened? But the behavior changed, like I said, overnight. All of a sudden, they were much more controlling. They were micromanaging every single thing that I was doing. They were constantly undercutting me in meetings. I wasn't allowed to have any access to the rest of the executive team. Everything had to go through them. And suddenly it didn't matter how much I did, and with the same results that I had just before being acknowledged and recognized and celebrated for, none of that was enough. And for me, because I trusted this relationship so much, and I was like, and again, this was like my absolute dream job. Like I remember having conversations with like, I cannot believe that this is my life. So I internalized everything and I worked harder. I thought, okay, if I could just do more, maybe then that'll be enough. If I could just do it right, that will make them recognize me again. And then we'll get our relationship and my working conditions back onto what it was before. If I could just do this enough. So I was ending up working 80, 90 hours. And it was really at the cost of my own health, my own mental health, and nothing was working. It only made it worse and worse because the more I tried to do, the worse that the situation got. Until at one point, I had one day that in a conversation with my boss, they gave me the feedback that my communication wasn't good, that I wasn't, and there was nothing really that I could get out of the conversation with her with them in sense of like, okay, so what do you mean my communication isn't good? Is it that because like, can you give me some situations? Can you tell me, can you give me context? What would you like to see instead? Like, I need some examples. And all I kept getting back from them was constantly of like, it's just not good enough. Like, you need to improve your communication. But I had no way of knowing what that was meant to be. Now, one of the things that really did help me in this situation was I had in previous roles built mentors, and I went back to one of the mentors that I trusted the most and that I had a really great working relationship with, and asked them for support. I'm like, what does this mean? Like, how do I adjust this? What can I do differently so that I create a situation where we're back into having a good relationship and that my work environment is moving positively forward. And they said something that I've never forgotten. And that was that especially once that was talking about my communication, they shared like there is nothing easier to criticize than your communication. That is the easiest thing to attack and the easiest thing to criticize about your performance. Why? Because it's vague, it's very subjective. It that they don't need to give a lot of like context, but it can still be seen as a really big problem, and it puts all of the onus, all of the doubt on you, on what you have done wrong and or what you could do better. But there's no responsibility from the other party to have to say essentially, hey, well, this is what it really needs to be. Now, I will also mention this before I have some haters on here going like, well, that's it. That's not a very good boss if they're not giving you concrete feedback. I agree. But you might find yourself in the same situation where you're being told you're not communicating effectively, you're not strategic enough in your communication, or whatever that may be. It is the easiest thing to criticize. And then that really helped me put it into perspective of like, it wasn't about my boss. It wasn't about actually I should say it wasn't about my performance. It wasn't about how capable I was about my responsibilities, but it was about my boss. And that was the hardest leadership lesson that I had to learn, is that my boss wasn't my friend. They weren't my safety net, and they sure as bleep were not going to advocate for my career at all. In this case, like, it went in the opposite direction. They were doing everything to undercut it. And these are some of the lessons, like one of the biggest lessons I took out of this was, even though I had built relationships with some of the executive team, again, I kept them at very surface level, wanting to keep them on business topics or relevant to what I was working on at that time, but not building any deeper trust or those really strong strategic partnerships, because I didn't want to upset or be disloyal to my boss. So when the relationship with my boss collapsed, I had no support network. I had no one else doing like the sanity check of like, hey, like, really, like, what's happening here? Because all of a sudden my professional also reputation collapsed because I had relied on this boss to be able to manage all of the visibility for me. And this is exactly what I see so many women leaders do. They fix things. They're the glue of their teams and the departments and colleagues together. They're keeping it all together, but they're still waiting for their boss, or they've put all of their eggs in one basket in a sense, and that is their boss, and thinking, well, when my boss sees it, my boss is going to help me get my salary raise, my boss is going to be the one that gets me my promotion. But if that relationship shifts, or even if it doesn't, sometimes they have different priorities and their priorities shift. Guess what? Everything that you've put into that relationship may not come to fruition. And here's what I hear so often from different clients and women that I speak with is like, well, I don't want to go around my boss, or I don't want to be political. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. And in they're doing that, you're making sure that you are staying really hidden, and you have put all of your how would I call this? You've put all of your reliance into your boss and hoping that they are going to be able, they're going to help you move forward. And again, I'm going to put the caveat here. There are some there's a lot of fantastic bosses out there and managers. And there's also ones that, like this one, like my past boss, just absolutely can be like the most toxic and bullying environment that you could imagine. Even if you have a fantastic boss, this lesson is still relevant for you, because it is still important for you to spread out your visibility so that it's not reliant on one person. So if you want to think of it in a different way, if I was trying to drive from Amsterdam to Rome, there are a like 100 different possibilities of how I could drive there. I could drive, I could fly, I could take the train, I could take a boat, right? And then even in those aspects, there are multiple different ways of routes that I could follow. So it gets me to my destination. But if one road is closed, or is has like, or one train route is like, okay, where it's closed for repairs, it means I still have alternatives to take. The same should be true for your career and your visibility, is that don't rely simply on your boss, because that is really the fastest way to short circuit your career. Now, if this is hitting a little close to home for you, and please, like, if this is not your fault, again, like I shared, it was a really big, painful lesson for myself and for me to learn. But if this is hitting too close to home, then I would encourage you, and I'd really love to see you book a leadership strategy call with me. Now, on this leadership strategy call, we're going to walk through and look exactly about, hey, where are you at this moment in time? What is working for you and what isn't working for you? Who needs to see your work, and what is your goals that you want to create? And then how to build the strategic relationships that you want beyond your boss. With the best part of this is without making it feel like it's disloyal to your boss or having to get into the political game. Because your next promotion, your next job shouldn't be reliant or dependent on one person. And I want to help you create that opportunity for yourself, so that you have the chance to go from being overlooked to being the one that your leaders and your executive teams are calling on. So if you're interested in that, DM me the word or comment below, call, and I'd love to see you on the call. Talk to you soon.